Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching the Tangled Cat Speaks, and this is a book edition. So, I look a mess because I fell asleep with my hair kind of damp last night, and it's been very humid here in New Mexico, very uncommonly humid. And so, this is how I woke up, and I knew that if I was going to sit down and do a video, I needed to sit down and do it right away before I got caught up in doing all of the things for the day. So here I am with wild hair. It is what it is. Honestly, I'm off from work today, so because it is the 4th of July, Independence Day here in the United States. So if my hair doesn't get done today, I'm okay with it. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the books that I read and or listened to from April, May, and June. And I'm not going to talk about them in the order that I read them. So I'm going to start off first with a full series that I completed. I did these on audio. It's the 5 Warrior Angels trilogy by Brian Lee Durfee. The 3 books are Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. Now, this is basically a long continuous story broken up into 3 volumes, and it is a wonderful trilogy. It's high fantasy, epic fantasy. There is a lot of violence, so, trigger warning. If you choose to take a look into this series, there's a lot of violence, torture, maiming, and there's also a lot of sexual violence. This story is basically there's a dude that kind of thinks that he literally thinks he's like a reincarnated god of sorts, and he's trying to get people to submit to him. He's trying to conquer lands. He's gathering all of these vicious cohorts to help him invade all of these different lands. And then there's in one particular land, there's a dude he's the king. His father had gone missing, presumably dead, so he ascended to the throne, and he's not a very nice guy. So there's him, there's this other evil dude, and there's wars going on, battles for power. And in the midst of it, there's a young boy named Nail. He's about 17. He's basically a servant or a slave to this older man who is a miner. And so, he spent a lot of time growing up in these mines and, just doing what he was told and never really feeling any kind of love or affection from this man. But he does have some friends in the area where they live, that are of the same age, and they hang out from time to time, and really close knit friends. And then there's the friend's sister. She actually ended up being my favorite character. Her name is Liz Hen. She is one of those characters, even though, like I say, this book is very dark and twisted and gruesome, there is some levity, and she's one of those things. She brings some of the levity, mostly because she's rude. She speaks her mind in a very brash and blunt way. She's obnoxious. She's just absolutely obnoxious, and I love her. I actually didn't like her for the first half of the first book, but after a while she grew on me, and then later on I came to realize that I really loved her. So but all of these friends get caught up in some of these battles, and Nail and his friends end up having to flee. Also, Nail is trying to find out the truth of who he is, because he's always been told that his parents were dead, but now he's got this niggling little hint that he might actually be the king's brother. There is a animal companion. He is a dog, and they call him Beer Mug. Best dog ever. Best boy. So It is a very, very amazing trilogy, and I highly recommend it. Again, beware of the trigger warnings, the violence and stuff. But if that's something that you can get past, I highly recommend this trilogy. I'm gonna talk about, and I might have already talked about a couple of these before, but I can't remember. So let's see if they're here. I'm doing the Blackstone Chronicles by John Saul, and these are 6 short books that were originally published individually, and I believe at some point all 6 were put into one giant book. But I happened to find all 6 of the individual novellas at the used bookstore. So these are the first 3, and it's all one continuous story, but it's kind of like episodes. It's horror, and it's called the Blackstone Chronicles. And let's see. So this is the first one, An Eye for an Eye, the doll. And this one revolves around a mother, a father, and a little girl who one day find that there is a package left on their front doorstep. And when they open it, it's a doll. And as soon as this doll enters the house, sinister things start happening. And yeah, it's very, very creepy. I don't like dolls anyway, I never have. So this one was really creepy. This one, the second one, is called Twist of Fate, and it's The Locket. Now this is centered around some other people that are in the same neighborhood, and it's a man. He comes across this locket, and as soon as he puts it in his pocket, he starts to get these paranoid kind of feelings that he thinks everybody, including his wife and daughter and co-workers, are all out to get him, and he basically becomes twisted in the head, and sinister things start to happen. And then this one is Ashes to Ashes, the Dragon's Flame. Now this involves a young woman. She's living with her aunt, and she's staying in what used to be her cousin's bedroom. Her cousin had run away as soon as she felt she could, when, at a young age. She ran away. She never came back. And this young woman, she ends up losing both her parents, so she goes and lives with her aunt. She's in her cousin's room, and here it is, years and years and years later, and they hear from the cousin, and she says, "I'm coming home." Now the cousin and her moms didn't get along, obviously, which is why she ran away. But the cousin, she's like excited that she's coming back, and so she goes to a yard sale kind of thing, and she sees this lighter in the shape of a dragon, and so she decides to buy it because she remembers her cousin being a smoker. And as soon as her cousin arrives, her cousin's very gentle, loving, and excited to see her cousin. Her and her mom are trying to ease the tension, but there's still definitely tension. And then she is given the gift of this lighter from her cousin, and it creates something inside of her. There is the old animosities rearing up even stronger than before, and sinister things start to happen. So that's the third one. I do have the other 3, and actually I only have 5 and 6 here because I have number 4 on my bedside table ready to be picked up at a moment's notice. Now, what ties all of these things together is the fact that in this area, it's the Blackstone Asylum. It used to be an asylum. Now it's an old abandoned building. Nobody goes there, but there is somebody or something lurking in the shadows within this asylum that nobody knows about, is managing to get them into a position to where somebody specific is going to get their hands on it, like the doll being placed on the doorstep. So it's pretty, they're short, really creepy stories. I wouldn't say anything super scary. They're more on the creepy side as opposed to horrific. But they're fun, they're short, and they're individually contained stories, but there is that overarching story of the asylum. Very fun. So let's see, those are those. I'm going to talk about some Westerns that I read, because in June I was participating in June on the Range, which was a reading event that is created by Michael K. Vaughn on his YouTube channel. And June on the Range is basically reading Westerns. And the criteria for this reading event is you read one Zane Grey, one Louis L'Amour, and then two other, not those two authors. I don't have the other ones on hand anymore. So I'm gonna have to put up some pictures of some of these because I don't have them anymore. But so the Louis L'Amour book that I read was Riley's Luck, and this one was about a baby, a young toddler, I think. And for whatever reason, his mother was just awful. His awful mother happened to be hanging around with this other guy, and he is genuinely a nice guy, but he keeps falling into bad times and hanging around with bad people, such as this woman. And it's winter time, and she says, "Get rid of it. I don't want it. Get rid of it." So he takes his toddler, and they get on a horse, and he starts riding out into the wilderness in this blizzard, and is going to leave the child there and to, succumb to the elements. And he changes his mind and goes to somebody that he trusts, knocks on his door at an inn and says, "Hey, can you hold on to this kid for me? I'll see you in the morning. I just got to figure some things out." Well, this guy, his name is Riley. And he's like, he's a good, upstanding person. And he's like, okay, very willing to help out a friend in need. But he's also known for, being one of those you don't mess with. He's a hard case. And so he's holding on to this kid. I mean, you know what? And I keep saying baby or toddler, but honestly, I think he's more like 5. Yes, I think he's closer to 5, because the next morning he's looking out the window and he's seeing the man and his mother hopping on a carriage and heading on out of town. And so when Riley wakes up, he's like, "Okay, well, let's go see if we could find them." And he's like, "They're gone. I saw them get on the carriage and they're out of here." And he's like, "Well, shoot, what am I gonna do? I got this kid on my hands. I don't know what to do. I'm a gambler. I kind of just roam." But it kind of starts off, he notices that he's got a little bit of luck in some of his gambling as soon as his kid arrives. So he decides to, keep him, and he ends up raising this kid. And it's a very good story. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I definitely want to read more Louis L'Amour, and I definitely have some more on my shelf. And so I read The Last of the Plainsmen, and this was on my Kindle. This one kind of followed a guy out on the plains hunting buffalo and all of the trials and tribulations that they have to go through. Not only hunting, but having to deal with the elements and, the Native Americans who don't want them hunting the buffalo and all of that kind of thing. And I didn't care for this one as much as I was hoping, because I always hear Zane Grey is one of the top tier Western authors, and maybe it's just this particular story I didn't like, but not that I didn't like it, it was kind of, I was a little bored. There was a whole lot of description of bugs and stuff because they're sleeping on the ground, and sometimes they're sleeping in caves because there's a whole lot of sand and dust storms. Oh my God, there was one they were talking about centipedes, and I hate centipedes with my soul. I like the more shoot 'em up kind of westerns where they're in a town and there's, lawlessness going on. Which brings me to my next one. I had so much fun with this book, and this is definitely one of those, they send this man, he's a marshal. He is sent to this town because there has been a murder, and the murder was of the most recent sheriff. And the sheriff before that was also killed, and the sheriff before that was run off. And so here comes the marshal, and what is his name? I want to say Rye. Yeah, his last name is Rye, Rye. And he has a nickname amongst all the bad guys, um, as the Doomsday Marshal. And, there's a lot of, he's sent to this town to clean it up and get rid of all of the bad stuff, all the bad elements. And he's got that reputation where, outlaws are like, oh no, we're not standing for this. We don't want him here, and we're gonna create some shenanigans. So there's that. But also along the way, when this marshal is on his way to get to this town, he comes across um a military person, several of them, and they're mostly dead. There's one that's alive, that had been left, he wasn't quite dead, and he explains that they were transporting a wagon full of money. I think it was gold coins. Um, and they got ambushed, and everybody was killed, and the wagon with the money was taken. Um, and so now the marshal, even though that's not his main priority, he went ahead and reported it as soon as he could, but he can't get that off his mind. So there's all of there's shootouts, and there's bar fights, and it was fun. It was very fast paced, very very easy reading. That one was actually, of the three so far, my favorite. And one of my other favorites I read is another Western. It's different, very different type of Western, because this is set in Mexican California. And this was The Mark of Zorro by Johnston McCulley. I loved this. I did this one on audio, and gosh, I had so much fun. The narrator was perfect with all of the Spanish and Mexican accents. He just did so well in portraying Zorro and his alter ego, Don Diego de la Vega, I think is his name. Because in his real life, this man is, he's from a rich family. He's privileged and considered, a little lazy, and a little weak, kind of. And something happens in him that he just wants to do more manly type things. But he does it under the cover of his mask, and he basically is taking money from people. He's kind of like a Robin Hood figure. So he's kind of like a undercover hero, vigilante type of thing. But it's not super violent at all. but it's funny the way I think my favorite thing about it is the people who are trying to find Zorro, capture him and everything. He's in his, real role, his real human life as Don Diego is acquaintances and maybe even friends with these people. And so they're talking about this Zorro person and, oh, he's this and he's that. And but they always describe it as him and his band of bandits. It's never just Zorro, which it usually is. But the story that they turn around and they tell people like Don Diego, they're like, oh, it was him and his men. Little do they know that Don Diego is Zorro, and he's just grinning to himself like, whatever, bro. I was there. It was me. And he's so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. How did you survive? What are you gonna do next time you encounter these bandits? It's so, so fun, and I absolutely adored it. Absolutely adored it. And I definitely need to read more Zorro because I had so much fun with it. Let's see. So I also did my 3 Agatha Christie's for April, May, and June. I did Murder at the Vicarage, which I've read multiple times. Very much enjoyed it. I mean, that's, my Swiss cheese for brains over here. I know the story, but I never remember who the suspect is. And even now, it's only been since April, and I'm like, wait a minute. Who was it? It'll come to me if I think about it hard enough. And I don't know why I like it. And I think that's why I like reading Agatha Christie over and over, because I'm just like, what? I don't remember. I love it, but I don't remember. And then the other book that I read, the next one that I read was in May, and that was the ABC Murders. And this one kind of follows a killer who is basically trying to see if he can compete mentally with Hercule Poirot. So he's devised a plan of using an ABC book to pick his victim so that it appears at random. And if you don't know, an ABC book, I believe is something similar to what we here in the United States would call Yellow Pages. Do those even still exist? Not Yellow Pages, White Pages, where, you've got the name of all the people and their phone numbers and addresses and stuff like that. And then the last one that I read in June was And Then There Were None, which is one of my favorite. And I actually do remember who the suspect is in this one, who the bad guy is. I remember who it is. But I just love this one so much because it's just such an intriguing premise of there's some people that are enticed to go to this small island during a time when weather is going to be kind of iffy, which is going to cause getting to and from the island problematic. So they're basically going to end up being stranded on this island, and they're lured there by someone who basically tells them, I know what you did. But they're intrigued enough to go. So now all these strangers are stuck on this island and trying to figure out who invited them. And little by little, they start popping off. They start dropping off, and they thought they were alone because they hadn't seen their host arrive. And they're trying to figure out, well, was there somebody hiding where we didn't know about? Who else is on this island? Who keeps killing us one by one? So it's just a fun, to me, kind of premise, and I really enjoy it. And I've seen multiple versions of TV adaptations. Very fun story for me. I really, really enjoy it. So yay. Another mystery that I enjoyed is by Dervla McTiernan. She is one of the authors that every time she puts something out, I automatically buy it without even knowing what it is. And this is one of her most recent, which is called What Happened to Nina. And this basically is about a young woman who goes on a hiking trip with her boyfriend, and he comes back and she doesn't. And he tells everybody that she left first and said that she was going to hang out with friends. But these friends never heard from Nina. So the parents, the family obviously are distraught, and they go out of their way to try to find out what happened to Nina. Very good mystery, maybe not really a thriller, kind of a thriller. It's a very, very good story. I love Dervla McTiernan, like I say, and every time she puts something out, automatic buy. So I read that and very much enjoyed it. And another book that I enjoyed, do I have it? I don't think I have it. I think I donated it already to the little free library. This is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Previously, some of the books that I've read by Dan Simmons have been kind of hit or miss for me, and those were mostly horror. This is a science fiction, and it's one of those. I've heard it compared to the Canterbury Tales, which is basically an overall story with individual shorter stories that are from a perspective of a different character. And that's what this is. Hyperion is basically another planet, and these people are summoned separately to go to this planet, and they don't know. Sorry, I decided that I wanted to eat my orange right at this exact moment for some reason, and so now I'm peeling it, if you wondered what that little sound is. So they're on this ship. These people, they don't know each other. They don't really know why they've been chosen to go to this planet. And so what the whole premise of this is each person is recounting what their relationship to Hyperion is, why they think they're going. And so it's different it's basically you're getting every character's backstory in a short little vignette kind of thing. And I wasn't sure I was gonna like that format, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And there was a couple of vignettes that I didn't care for, and there was a couple that I really, really liked, and then there was a couple in between that were just kind of eh. But overall, the whole overall thing I really, really enjoyed, which means that at some point in the future, I am going to read The Fall of Hyperion, Endymion, and The Rise of Endymion. I'm not sure if that's the right order, but they are all kind of set in this same world, and at some point I'm going to get to them because I very much enjoyed Hyperion. Another book that I read was a newer fantasy, and I don't know if it's categorized as young adults, but the characters are pretty young in it. This is called Dragon Fruit by Micaiah Lucier. I'm not sure. I don't know how to say it. But it's called Dragon Fruit, and dragons are a thing. And people try to hunt these dragons because if you can capture one who is pregnant with eggs, the eggs, or they call the dragon eggs dragon fruit, have magical powers, and by consuming the egg, you can your deepest desire will be fulfilled. But this comes with a heavy price. It's a very fun story. I really, really enjoyed it. Very, very quick read. And very, very descriptive. Like I felt very, sucked into this island landscape. Very, very fun. Another book that I read was an older science fiction book by Michael Moorcock called The Ice Schooner, Schooner, Schooner. I think it's Schooner. I'm not positive. But this one involves a world that is covered in ice, and they have boats, but they're not water boats. They're basically giant ice sleds that are in the shape of boats, I think, and they have sails and everything, so there's a lot of wind, and they can use this wind to sail over the top of the ice. This man, he becomes stranded in a there's different territories, and he's stranded in a territory of, you know, it's kind of like an enemy of where he's from, and he's stuck there. He's kind of coming across these people, and they kind of, even though they're kind of on the other side of political stuff, opposite sides of political stuff, they kind of welcome him because he is renowned for being one of the best sailors, like a captain of one of these ships. There, he's very renowned for doing that. Um, and he's welcomed because while he was stranded out on the ice, he comes across a man who tells him where he's from, and also that the reason why he was also stranded on the ice is basically dying. And he says, I found the mother, or something, I can't remember if it's called the mother or something like that, basically like their deity, the home of their deity, which to them is like unfindable. They didn't, nobody thought that you could ever get there. He claims to have found it, and he was on his way back home when bad things happened with his ship, so he was kind of trying to walk, and the elements were getting to him, when this man, also on foot trying to find safety, found him, learned his story, and brought him back, even though he didn't survive much longer once he got back. Brought him back. So now the family is kind of indebted to him, but they're also very fascinated because he's, like I say, a renowned captain of these ice ships. And it turns out that before he passed, the man that he had found had willed him his ship, and it's a very fancy, well decked out ship. And even though he knows these people, he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't like these people. He wants to go back home, but he's compelled to captain this ship. He just must, because that's his life. He loves being a captain, and this is an impeccable ship. But the caveat to that is that he has to use the ship to go find the route through the ice to get to this unfindable place that this man supposedly says he has found. So he decides to take on the challenge and take the ship and the quest. And some of this man's family decide to come along with, and things happen on the ice, and it's very, very good. Very much like, kind of like a science fiction-y thing, in their technology and stuff like that. But it's also a very good adventure type of story. I had a lot of fun with it. And I hear other good things about the author, Michael Moorcock. So at some point I might find other books by him. Now, speaking of science fiction, another book that I read was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, because I'm trying to read everything by him. And oh my gosh, this was another mind bender. It was very, very good. This one has to do with the multiverse and moving through it and the consequences of all of that. I really enjoyed it. It was just, like I said, it just kind of blew my mind. I think I liked Recursion better, which was more of a time travel. But this one, like I say, was dealing with the multiverse, and it was still very trippy. And oh my gosh, so good. Highly recommend Dark Matter. And another book that I highly recommend is an old classic by John Steinbeck called East of Eden. And I gotta say, I never ever wanted to read that book because it just sounded, just by the title, I never really looked into what it was about. But the East of Eden, it's an older classic, and I've kind of been more hit, or no, I'm sorry, more miss than hit on older classics. Like, I did not like For Whom the Bell Tolls. There was a couple of other ones that I was just like, I'm thoroughly bored. So I just didn't ever want to read this. But it came up on the Discord that I'm on one of the monthly picks for classics. And I thought, okay, I'm going to just do it. So I got it on audio, and gosh, it was such a good book. It was so compelling. So East of Eden basically follows a couple of people. There's a family that has two brothers, and one brother is more loved by their father than the other, and the other is aware of it and very upset by it and does some things that he shouldn't, as a form of punishment to the well-loved brother. So this whole book is kind of a reimagining of the Cain and Abel story in the Bible. And then there's another character. She's pure evil, 100% pure awfulness. And she comes in contact with one of the brothers, and just situations occur, and it is such a compelling book. It's so good. I was not expecting this level of drama, this level of what the fuck. I was not expecting it. And gosh, it was so good, and I highly recommend it. If you are afraid of classics, please give this one a try. It's so good. I promise you it's not going to dull your brain cells. And that is all that I have read. And thank you for joining me. Bye.